Volkswagen just released a $60,000 people's car. And if that sentence doesn't make your brain short-circuit, you don't understand what Volkswagen used to mean. My dad had a pop-top camper van when I was a kid. Volkswagen Bus, dark maroon with the full setup, sink, stove, the roof that cranked up for sleeping. To this day, it's still one of the coolest vehicles I've ever seen. Simple, honest, full of character. The kind of car that represented freedom and adventure without trying too hard. And that's the thing about old Volkswagens. They weren't just cars, they were statements. The Beetle was the car that rejected everything Detroit stood for. The Bus was freedom on four wheels. They had soul. They had purpose. They connected with people on an emotional level that most modern cars can't touch. So when Volkswagen announced the ID.Buzz, their electric revival of the classic Bus, I wanted to be excited. It looks right. The proportions are there. The nostalgic styling hits all the marks. But then you see the price tag. $60,000 for a people's car, for the vehicle that was supposed to represent accessible adventure. And that's when it hits you. Volkswagen understood the aesthetic of what made them special. They just completely lost the substance. They made a bus for people who would have driven a Mercedes in 1970, not for the actual hippies and adventurers who made the original iconic. The ID.Buzz isn't just an expensive electric van. It's the perfect metaphor for what happened to Volkswagen. A company that once stood for simple, honest, accessible transportation, now chasing premium profits and luxury credibility while wearing the costume of their former self. This is the story of how Volkswagen lost its soul. Let's go back to the beginning because you need to understand what Volkswagen was to understand what they lost. After World War II, the Beetle became something remarkable. This little car helped rebuild Europe. It became a symbol of prosperity and democracy rising from the ruins. The vehicle that proved you didn't need chrome and horsepower to be happy. Simple, reliable, honest transportation for regular people. When the Beetle came to America in the late 1950s, it shouldn't have worked. This was the land of massive V8s, planned obsolescence, and cars as status symbols. The Beetle was slow, weird-looking, and proudly simple. But it connected, especially with people who rejected what Detroit represented. The counterculture found their car. College students, artists, free spirits, people who valued honesty over image. The Beetle wasn't trying to be anything it wasn't. It was air-cooled, easy to fix, and it just worked. Then came the Bus. Same mechanical simplicity, same honest design philosophy, but now with space for your friends, your surfboard, your entire life. The Microbus became the ultimate symbol of freedom. Road trips, adventure, living outside the system. You could sleep in it, work on it yourself, and it would take you anywhere you wanted to go. This was Volkswagen's identity, the anti-establishment car company. Simple, honest, accessible. Cars with personality and purpose. They weren't the fastest or the prettiest, but they meant something. And here's the crucial part. They were affordable. The Beetle cost around $1,700 in 1968. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $15,000 today. The Bus was around $2,500. These weren't luxury items. They were genuinely people's cars. So what happened? The Beetle couldn't last forever. By the 1970s, it was outdated. Safety regulations, emission standards, customer expectations. The world moved on. Volkswagen needed to evolve. And honestly, they did it right at first. The Golf arrived in 1974 and it was brilliant. Water-cooled, front-wheel drive, modern, but still maintaining that VW character. Practical, well-built, affordable. Then came the GTI in 1976, and suddenly Volkswagen had created the hot hatch. Performance for regular people. The spiritual successor to what the Beetle represented. The early Golf era was Volkswagen successfully moving forward while staying true to their identity. They proved you could modernize without losing your soul. But then the corporate transformation began. Volkswagen wanted to be more than the people's car company. They wanted prestige, they wanted profit margins, they wanted to play with the luxury brands. The acquisition started. Audi, which made sense. Bentley in 1998, Lamborghini in 1998, Bugatti in 1998. Eventually Porsche in 2012, though that acquisition was so complicated it almost went the other way. On paper, it was building an empire. In reality, it was an identity crisis. Volkswagen, the brand, didn't know what it was anymore. Were they economy, premium, luxury, all of the above? The platform sharing began. Corporate efficiency. Maximize profits. Every car in the group starts using the same bones, the same parts, the same systems. A Golf and an Audi A3 are fundamentally the same car with different badges and interiors. And look, platform sharing makes business sense. But it's the opposite of what made Volkswagen special. The Beetle was unique. The bus was unique. They had character because they were genuinely different. Now, everything was just variations on a theme, trying to be everything to everyone. The American market became Volkswagen's laboratory for losing the plot entirely. They tried to go upmarket with the Phaeton in 2002, a Volkswagen that competed with the Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series. It was actually a great car, beautifully engineered, loaded with technology, legitimately luxurious. It failed spectacularly, because nobody wants to spend $70,000 on a Volkswagen. That's not what the brand means. It's like showing up to a punk rock show in a tuxedo. You're missing the entire point. The Touareg was the same problem in SUV form, a $40,000 Volkswagen SUV that shared its platform with Porsche and Audi. Who asked for this? The same people who bought Beetles in the 60s? The bus owners? No, this was Volkswagen chasing money instead of meaning. Then came the new Beetle in 1998. This one hurts because it shows Volkswagen understood they'd lost something, but they tried to buy it back with nostalgia instead of substance. The new Beetle looked cute. It pushed all the retro buttons. It was a massive hit initially, but it was built on a Golf platform, cost as much as a Golf, and offered less practicality than a Golf. It was nostalgia as a product feature, the aesthetic of what the Beetle meant without any of the actual philosophy, a tribute band instead of the real thing. You couldn't work on it yourself. It wasn't particularly affordable. It didn't reject anything or stand for anything. It was just cute. And cute isn't enough. And then came Dieselgate. In 2015, the world learned that Volkswagen had been cheating on emissions tests for years. Millions of diesel vehicles programmed to detect when they were being tested and alter their emissions accordingly. In the real world, these cars were spewing pollutants at up to 40 times the legal limit. This wasn't just a scandal. It was the ultimate betrayal of everything Volkswagen claimed to represent. The people's car company, the honest brand, the engineers who built simple, reliable, trustworthy vehicles. All a lie. They cheated because they couldn't engineer their way to the standards they'd promised. They chose deception over integrity, the most un-Volkswagen thing imaginable. The fines were massive, over $30 billion in penalties, settlements, and buybacks. The CEO resigned. Criminal charges were filed, but the real cost was trust. Volkswagen had spent decades building a reputation for German engineering and honest values. Dieselgate revealed that modern Volkswagen was just another corporate giant willing to lie to customers and regulators for profit margins. The irony is brutal. The Beetle succeeded in America because it was the anti-Detroit car. Honest when American manufacturers were building planned obsolescence. Simple when Detroit was selling excess and lies. And now Volkswagen had become exactly what they used to stand against. So here we are in 2024. Volkswagen is going all in on electric vehicles. The ID.3, ID.4, ID.5, the whole lineup. And yes, the ID.Buzz, the electric bus that looks so right and feels so wrong. I wanted to love it. The design is fantastic. They nailed the proportions. It's instantly recognizable as a bus without being a cheap retro knockoff. That's harder than it looks, but it starts at $59,995. For context, you can get a Chevy Tahoe for that price, a Toyota Sequoia, 3-row SUVs that seat 8 and can tow 9,000 pounds. The ID.Buzz seats 7, has minimal cargo space with the third row up, and its towing capacity is basically zero. You're paying $60,000 for nostalgia and an electric drivetrain. Who is this for? Not the people who made the original bus iconic. Those folks are priced out or they've moved on. This is for wealthy buyers who want to signal that they appreciate the aesthetic of freedom and simplicity while their vehicle is packed with software systems, subscription services, and dealer-dependent repairs. You can't work on an ID.Buzz yourself. It's software-locked, algorithm-controlled, and requires specialized tools for virtually everything. The exact opposite of the original bus's shade tree mechanic charm. And that's the problem with modern Volkswagen in one vehicle. They understand what they were. They can design cars that look like what they were, but they've completely forgotten why it mattered. The original bus was special because it represented accessible freedom, adventure for regular people, simple, honest transportation that got out of your way and let you live. The ID.Buzz represents expensive nostalgia. It's a $60,000 reminder of when Volkswagen made cars for people instead of profit margins. Here's what kills me. Volkswagen still positions itself as a premium brand, but what does it actually stand for now? What's their identity? They're not the affordable option. A Jetta starts around $24,000. The GTI is over $33,000. These aren't budget cars anymore. They're not the quirky alternative. Everything they make looks like everything else in their segment. Competent, inoffensive, corporate. They're not the reliable choice. Volkswagen's reliability ratings have been mediocre to poor for years. They're consistently near the bottom in long-term dependability studies. They're not the performance brand. Sure, the GTI and Golf R still exist, but they're expensive niche products in a sea of crossovers. They're just there. Another car company making another lineup of vehicles that do everything adequately and nothing memorably. The Beetle rejected conformity. The modern Volkswagen is conformity with a German accent. The saddest part is they keep trying to recapture the magic with retro styling. The new Beetle, the ID.Buzz, constant references to their heritage in advertising. But heritage isn't about aesthetics, it's about values. The Beetle succeeded because it stood for something. Simple instead of excessive, honest instead of deceptive, accessible instead of exclusive. Modern Volkswagen is excessive, was proven deceptive, and is increasingly exclusive. They kept the vintage font in their logo but threw out everything it used to represent. I think about my dad's pop-top camper sometimes, that dark maroon bus with the full camper setup. The sink, the stove, the roof that cranked up for sleeping under the stars. It cost less than $3,000 new. You could fix it with basic tools. It represented freedom and possibility. Volkswagen could build that today. Not literally, obviously, but they could make an affordable, simple, honest vehicle that captures what the bus meant instead of just how it looked. They won't though, because modern Volkswagen is too busy chasing premium prices, luxury credibility, and corporate synergies. They understood the aesthetic. They lost the soul. And that's the real tragedy of Volkswagen. Not that they failed, they didn't. They sell millions of cars a year and make billions in profit. The tragedy is that they succeeded at becoming everything they used to stand against. The people's car company that makes cars for rich people. The honest engineers who got caught in the biggest automotive fraud in history. The quirky alternative that became the corporate standard. Volkswagen didn't die, it just forgot why it mattered in the first place.